Okay.
Yeah.
I do appreciate everybody coming in. I asked the mayor to be here because this address is not just for the media, but it's also for our citizens. And I'll read my statement, and then I'll give the mayor an opportunity to share his thoughts or a few words. With everything that's occurred this last week in Minnesota and Louisiana and yesterday in Dallas, I felt it was necessary to have this press conference and address our citizens during this very volatile time. I think it's time to come together and not push apart. Blue lives matter, black lives matter, and not because of blue or black, but because they are lives. Because when I say this, man has a mother, this man is a father, this man had a sister, or this man was a brother. I'm not telling you how he was different from you, but how he was the same. Our hearts go out today to the families of those officers in Dallas, but we also grieve for the families of the men who lost their lives in Minnesota and Louisiana. And we also feel sadness for the officers who fired their weapons and their families too, because whatever else we learn about their actions and through the investigations, we know their lives will never be the same. As I prepare to relinquish my post as police chief, what I look to with the most gratitude is the support this community gives your officers every day, and the pride with which these officers serve you. So I would like to ask you today to continue to look at each other and not see blue or black before you see a neighbor and a friend. And regardless of race or religion, neighborhood or politics, my prayer is that we may serve as a model for looking past our divisions to see where we can unite. Because whatever we may not agree on, we surely can all agree that we don't want another mother to lose a son, another child to lose a daddy, or another of our brothers to be gone too soon. And when we send our messages and feelings out on the internet to the whole world, it is my prayer that our community can continue to be a beacon of hope for the rest of the country. And if you or someone you love has so much pain in their heart that anger may turn to hate, I urge you to seek a pastor or a counselor or anyone you trust and express those feelings and work for healing and change rather than add to violence and distance. As a nation, we cannot let this become the new normal. We cannot forget of the struggles our nation has faced over the years and much of the accomplishments that have been made in creating positive relationships between citizens and the police that serve and protect them. And since early this morning, I have been representing the state of Texas as the president for Texas Police Chiefs Association, and through numerous discussions with other chiefs and other states, the same resounding thought is being shared. We cannot choose to move away from community policing styles. We must push forward. As chiefs, we must recognize we are in the wrong when we are in the wrong and do what we can to correct it. It is our job to always make efforts to change the culture of old-style policing to one of servanthood. And I've stated this over and over again. We are the guardians of a democracy. This morning I was a guest on the BBC radio show in London, and the radio host stated that she spoke to two young black girls yesterday who told her they were fearful of the police. Why has it come to that? Have we truly regressed that much? I believe here in San Angelo we are blessed to have great relationships with all walks of life. Now I would be naive to state I don't believe there's racism or bigotry in our community. It is here, and I've worked hard on keeping that out of the PD. I've worked hard at rebuilding those relationships that were broken prior to me becoming chief, and we must continue that progress and not regress. As we see other cities and states at odds with their defenders, here we don't have those issues. We need to stay focused to assure that we never do. In closing, I want to ask all of our community to pray for the families who are suffering right now in our great nation. Pray for the Dallas Police Department as they struggle to deal with this horrific attack and loss. And pray for the anger and the hate to stop. And pray for the violence to stop. Thank you. Mayor, you want to say anything?
Yes, sir. We're very fortunate here in San Angelo, and we're fortunate because we have worked, and we've worked as a community to keep harmony and peace amongst our neighbors and our people and our police and our city. But you know, the Savior said some 2,000 years ago, he made a statement, and he said, if you want to get along in this world, if you want peace and harmony and unity, love God first and love neighbor as self. And I have preached this in my 3 years as being mayor, and I will continue to preach We have to love each other. We have to care for each other. We have to respect each other. And color lines and culture lines, male or female, has no boundaries in God's eyes. We are the same. We are all God's children. In San Angelo, Texas, we need to do what the Lord has told us to do, and hopefully He will keep His strong hand of protection over us so that our city will never have to endure what these other cities are doing. And I continue to pray for our city, for our state, and our nation. We need to care for each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Questions? No?
Chief, do you have any message for the black community in San Angelo?
Yes, and fortunately today, I'm going to participate in a meeting with the leaders of NAACP and the Standard Times, and I want them to, and I want every group in our community, and specifically the minorities, to feel that they're going to be treated fairly and equally. This morning when I was on the phone doing that interview, one guest was the president for the Black Officer Union Association in Dallas, and then the other one was a retired lieutenant colonel from the NYPD. And the philosophies from New York was totally different than ours. And I just think that we have to be patient, and we have to lose the aggression. And I don't know if it's because of media that we're seeing, and we see this too many, I'm reading too many reports and seeing too many times where people are resisting arrest and escalating it. The officers, number one, have to train and learn to de-escalate situations, and that's what they're trained to do. But as citizens, we also need to remember that we need to do our part in not escalating those situations. So if an officer tells you to do something, by all means do it. And if you're not happy with it, we have ways for you to remedy that. You can come in and file complaints. You can file suit if you need to. But let's not get it to where what happens in Louisiana yesterday in the last couple of days. We don't want that here.
We don't have this issue in San Angelo, the two shootings. Why do you think that is?
I think that, and I have to go back to 2002, when the racial tensions in our community were very, very high. And the city decided, and the mayor at the time, decided to create a racial task force. And when I took office in 2004, sat on that task force, and even when I got on in 2004, I think the participation from the SAPD was very antagonistic. It was very defensive. And I can say honestly, when I walked in, I was also quite defensive and very protective of the organization. But I think that we have to, it was those relationships that were built. It was the willingness to work with NAACP. And I think, I wish Garland was here. I didn't think about getting him here. But I think he would tell you that we've, as the PD, have done a phenomenal job building those relationships.
What do you think, being head of the Texas Police Chiefs Association, what do you think that needs to happen on police departments' behalf to where it kind of changes the culture that we're in right now of kind of people attacking police officers?
Yeah, I was sitting with a group of people last night, and we were discussing a lot of that, and I was constantly saying, well, look at this video, look at this video, look at this video. And I would say that there's so much less racism in law enforcement today than there was in the 50s and the 60s. And there's probably thousands less incidents than were occurring back then. But we have 24-hour news. We've got social media. Everybody's got camera phones, and it makes things very real. And those situations are not a representative of the majority of peace officers throughout the country. And we, unfortunately, it's easy to say that guy represents everybody, and it doesn't. This guy that was the sniper, his hatred for, and as I stated earlier, it started as anger and turned to hate, but it was his hatred for police officers in general, heightened by white police officers, that drove him to doing that. And, everything that I've heard, the protests were peaceful, the officers were treating everybody fairly, There was not anything going on. And then just to be ambushed this way. And I said this too a little while ago, I don't want it to become the new normal, because more and more, day and day, we're seeing ambushes of police officers throughout the country over and over again. And we have to stop that.
Some people that might be watching might be thinking, God forbid I ever find myself in a scenario like downtown Dallas last night. What should I have in the back of my head to keep myself as safe as possible, to make the job of police as easy as possible if they ever find themselves in that kind of scenario?
Run away from the shooting. And last night, all those officers were running towards the shooting while everybody was running away. Run away from the shooting, protect yourself, and by all means follow all orders that the officers are giving you. Because you have to understand, the officers are going into a very high-stress situation. As much as a citizen is feeling stress, and as any citizen, some citizens, some people handle stress better than most, and it's the same thing with officers. So comply with the orders that you're given, do exactly what you're told when you're told to do it, and always keep your hands clear. That's the main thing.
Did the large amount of crowds that did come, because a lot of what I'm hearing is that people were surprised by how many people showed up for the vigil, did that create confusion, or did that affect anything?
No, I think they were plenty staffed, as far as I know from what I've seen. It appeared that they were plenty staffed. They were prepared for a large group of people. And I don't think that the small group or large group really affected the situation. This person had already made a decision on what they were going to do and how they were going to do it. And they found the opportunity with where it was being done.
The other thing I wanted to ask you is, being that you are representing all of Texas and you've dealt with people in different places, did you have any personal connections to anybody in Dallas?
No, I have my cousin who I got into law enforcement is a detective there, and I spoke to him briefly over the phone and over Facebook. And I'll probably stay with him when I go down there for the funeral. The president for the Black Officer Association, he said something. He says, Dallas has lost a lot of lives. Officers die yearly in the line of duty, and he says, and they all hurt, but this hurts a lot more. And I think it was, I think it's hard for you to understand, and I don't mean just you, Russ, I mean anybody other than police officers, to know that the people that we are trying to protect are in the back of their mind thinking they're going to ambush us. And to lose 5 officers and have a total of 12 people shot is crazy. And so I understand the pain that president's feeling.
After something like this happens, there's a lot of crying and prayer and discussion for a few days, and then the conversation goes to something else. What do you hope that people are still doing, still talking about next week?
There's got to be change. And, first I'll speak from my association's perspective. The Police Chief Association was created to professionalize the profession of being a chief. And we hope to make an impact in police departments throughout the state. Even today, there's police departments in the state of Texas that work without policy manual. And it's our job, it's my job as the president to try to get those people and those organizations to a level of professionalism. And I think that that's going to be our focus, is to continue to do that. It was real quick for the gentleman from New York to start pointing fingers when we were on a talk show at President Obama. And granted, I don't think President Obama has been very supportive of police and has been quick to point fingers at us. But that being said, the way President Obama feels about me, the San Angelo Police Department, does not matter how we do our business. And it's about creating and changing the culture and the environment. It's about hiring people, regardless of race or religion. It's about hiring people with a compassionate heart who want to do this job for the right reason. And that's the start, and that's what we need to focus on. Now, obviously, you want your police department to be a mirrored image of your breakdown, your ethnic breakdown in your community, but it's not always feasible. I'd rather have somebody that has compassionate heart regardless of race.
There is no defense or ambush. How can the officers on the street be more aware, more protect themselves, or create a sixth sense of some? How many is there for?
You know, I think the officers, especially and I know in our organization, but I think all over the country, have been working at a heightened state of awareness because of the things that we've seen occurring and because of the ambushes. You know, I've been pushing out a weekly training to our officers, and I think that's been helpful. I think reminding them weekly, if not daily, about wearing their vest and their seatbelt and staying fit and being aware of their surroundings is something that is a standard in policing today. And like I said, because of everything else and the internet and us being able to keep up with what's going on around the country, I think we all are at that heightened state of awareness.
I'd read that they had not worn riot gear on purpose because they didn't want to seem as separate from the people that were protesting last night. So do you think that that kind of accessibility kind of goes away after something like this?
I think, and it can, and I'm going to give you an example. You see some officers in some departments move more towards a tactical type of uniform. And against, you know, it hasn't been a popular decision, but I've always chosen to stay with the uniform that we have, because I've not wanted to create that sense of militarization or that sense of separation between us and the citizens that we serve, and I think that that's important. You know, I certainly think that if an officer is working a protest in full body armor, and I think it's intimidating, and I think it sets a tone, it sets a negative tone. But on the same hand, we have to also understand that there's risk and there's dangers. And if there's anything that we learn from this, I would suspect that these type of protests that occur will have much more pre-security, and there will be more screening of the areas before the officer, you know, especially in the city inside of Dallas, before we allow everything to occur. You know, kind of like they do when the president's coming in. You know, they go through everything and make sure that there's not anything there.
One of the other things I've been hearing in some places is that given all the shootings of black people, it's created sort of a pressure cooker environment. What do you think about that?
You know, Rashta, I don't have all the statistics on the breakdown of how many whites, Hispanics, or blacks have gotten shot. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you the number. I don't know. I do know that what we see on the. I'm going to hang this phone up. Whoever's calling. Okay. I think it might have stopped your recording too. Whose is this one?
Not mine.
I think it stopped the recording. You know, regardless, and I want to say this, I do think that there's the issues with the black people getting shot by the police officers, but it shouldn't be just that. It should be issues with people, any person getting shot, period. And I think we have to look at that as a separate situation other than the racial tension that is created. And the movements that we have seen in our country with Baltimore and Ferguson, you know, I think that we have to gut check ourselves. And sometimes I feel that sensationalism of the situation has increased other issues as well. Okay. Well, I do appreciate y'all coming, and again, my focus is to bring a sense of calmness to our community, and I think that we have that, but it's just a reminder, and I'm looking forward to the meeting this afternoon with NAACP and see what comes out of that, and see if we can also get their reinforcement in pushing that message. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.